Before we begin, picture this: a galaxy trembling in fear, not of war or conquest, but of something they don't understand. If you're a fan of sci-fi stories where humanity turns fear into friendship, you're in for something special. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more epic tales that turn expectations upside down. Now let's dive into today's story. Galactic elders feared the beast, until it cuddled a human. The elders spoke in whispers. They always did when fear outweighed reason. Around the obsidian oval of the council spire, shimmering with centuries of tradition and carefully maintained paranoia, 12 beings from 12 ancient species convened under the spectral light of a dead star. Their expressions, be they chitin, fur, metal, or translucent membrane, were unified in one emotion: dread. A slow-turning hollow loop projected above them. It played without sound, but the images screamed loud enough. A desolate mining colony on Crushed third moon. Explosions. Screams. A blur of motion, 12 feet tall, clawed, plated in shadow-hardened bone. It moved like a demon and struck like an extinction event. The last frame froze on two enormous amber eyes shining in the darkness as the creature towered over a crippled life transport. Counselor Thalrex of the Ilari turned toward his fellow delegates. His skin glistened with bioneural oil, his segmented face twitching in revulsion. You have all seen the data. The incident on Crushed 3 is but the latest. The containment procedures have failed. The beast is unstable. Perhaps even sapient. Regardless, it is dangerous beyond measure. Several nodded. The representative from the Varn, a crystalline entity that communicated via harmonic tremors, hummed sharply. The elders promised peace to the young races. Yet we let this thing roam? It has already leveled 4 outposts. Thalrex leaned forward. We must dispose of it. But openly? No. The public outcry, the diplomatic risk, too great. We need a solution that is both quiet and permanent. The chamber fell still. Then a whispering thought emerged through the psionic link they shared. The Terrans? A collective shudder passed through the room. Primitive. Aggressive. Empathetically unstable. But durable. Perfect. Thalrex allowed a slow, malicious smile. Yes. Give it to the humans. Let it become their problem. Across the stars, on the outer rim of Terran-controlled space, Captain Elias Rourke sipped recycled coffee from a cracked titanium mug and stared through the panoramic window of orbital post 37C, floating above the dead planet of Fedros 7. Nothing lived down there. Nothing wanted to. The place was a relic of a forgotten war, the kind that made nice, round casualty numbers in history books. The station around him was equally forgotten. A skeleton crew, a half-functional AI, and more dust than data. For Elias, that suited him just fine. He hadn't been ready to return to Earth. Not after the Zivak War. Not after the thing he'd done, or hadn't done, on Caliban Ridge. He rubbed the scar above his brow, the skin puckered from plasma flashback. A reminder of how close he'd come to joining the names on that damn wall. Captain, the station's AI chirped in its clipped, polite tone, a diplomatic courier is en route. Marked, eyes only, council directive. ED, 7 minutes. Elias blinked. We get diplomacy now? Must have taken a wrong turn at the nebula. I do not believe the Ilari make navigational errors, sir. He groaned and stood. Great. Better put on pants. 7 minutes later, a sleek, silver obelisk-shaped courier docked with an audible hiss. The airlock cycled open and out stepped a representative of the Elder Council. Tall, masked, robes flowing like smoke, voice filtered through some kind of vocal dampener. I am authorized for delivery only, it said, refusing eye contact. Behind it hovered a magnetic cart carrying a sealed stasis pod. It pulsed with biosigns Elias couldn't quite identify. What's in the box? He asked, hands on his hips. The Ilari tilted its head. Cargo designated Class Omega Zeta Prime. Council requires off-grid housing, minimal observation, and strict isolation. You are to provide. Immediately. No manifest? No mission profile? What is this, some kind of cosmic landfill? Your compliance is not optional, Captain Rourke. The Terran Accord ensures mutual obligation. Elias opened his mouth to protest but stopped. The pod behind the envoy shifted. Not physically, energetically. A pulse rippled through the air like pressure before a thunderclap. He narrowed his eyes. I want a scan. Denied. The Ilari turned without further dialogue, stepped back into the courier, and departed. No paperwork. No explanation. Just a glowing coffin dumped into his lap like a cursed relic. Later that night, if the 37-hour Fedran cycle could be called such, Elias sat alone in the hangar bay staring at the pod. It was big. 12 feet long. Reinforced with alloy he didn't recognize. No markings except a single glyph on the front. An elder sigil for quarantine. Not danger. Not top secret. Keep out. He frowned. That was the problem. The elders were cautious, yes, but not poetic. Their labeling was never vague. The pod emitted a slow, rhythmic hum. Once every 20 seconds, a spike of energy tickled the edges of human sensory range. Elias felt it more than heard it. Not painful. Just wrong. By shift's end, 2 of his crew had reported nosebleeds. One claimed to hear a low growl every time he passed near the pod, though the recording showed only silence. Elias made a decision. He returned to his quarters and pulled up his encrypted log. Entry started. He stared at the blinking cursor. This is Captain Elias Rourke, Orbital 37C. Council delivery received 0400 hours. No manifest. No chain of custody. Subject exhibits low-frequency energy emissions and possible neural interference. Elders have refused further contact. Requesting analysis. Something's not right. He paused, tapping his fingers on the desk. Then added, Subject, feels aware. The cursor blinked in agreement. That night, Elias dreamt of fire. Not battlefield fire. Not the controlled chaos of orbital bombardment or the plasma fields of Zvac 6. This was something older. A black flame that danced in cold gravity, curling around stars and whispering its name. He stood inside a vast chamber of bone and shadow, and something massive watched him from above. Eyes like twin eclipses stared down, not with hunger but with recognition. When he woke, sweat-drenched and gasping, the pod was glowing. He stormed into the hangar bay, pulse rifle slung across his chest, half expecting to find it open or shattered or gone. But it stood untouched. Lights pulsing softly. Waiting. Elias approached, breath shallow, fingers tight on the grip of his weapon. Are you dreaming too? He whispered. The pod gave no answer. But from within, so faint that the security cams didn't register it, he heard a sound. Not a growl. Not a roar. A whimper. A low, mournful whimper that cracked something behind his ribs. Not fear. Not revulsion. Pity. He took a step back. His training screamed at him, classify, isolate, report. But the war had taught him what came after that. Misunderstanding. Dehumanization. Elimination. That was the protocol. That was always the protocol. He looked again at the glyph. Quarantine. Not danger. The beast inside had been labeled, buried, and now dumped at the edge of Terran space. Out of sight. Out of mind. But Elias Rourke was staring right at it. And it was staring back. He didn't sleep again that cycle. Not because he was afraid. Because he was curious. And somewhere deep inside that curiosity was the beginning of something dangerous. Not the beast. The truth. The security override was supposed to take 3 codes and a thumbprint. Elias bypassed it with a hardwired override and a 6-digit bypass. An old trick from the siege days on Caliban Ridge. He didn't wait for clearance. He waited for truth. The stasis pod stood silent as the bay lights dimmed to standby. He hadn't told the crew. Not because he didn't trust them, but because he wasn't sure what would come out when the seals broke. Better it be him standing here. He was already broken in all the right places. The final lock hissed. The containment seal glowed a moment, red to green, then vanished. For a moment nothing moved. The air tasted ionized. Heavy. Electric. Then the lid lifted and the beast emerged. It was bigger than the footage showed. 12 feet, maybe 13 if fully extended. Its frame was humanoid only in the most abstract sense. 2 arms, 2 legs, but wrong in proportion. The chest was armored in what looked like calcified scale or exoskeletal plating, dark as void. Muscles moved under the armor like quiet tectonics. Clawed hands ended in articulated fingers. Its head bore no mouth, only a slightly protruding jaw beneath a smooth ridge that gave way to 2 massive amber eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It didn't roar. It didn't attack. It didn't move at all. Elias stood his ground. The thing inhaled, a dry, deliberate sound that reminded him of wind through rusted pipes. Its eyes locked onto his. It didn't blink. Instead, it tilted its head just slightly and crouched. Elias raised the plasma rifle. Not in threat. In reflex. The beast's gaze dropped to the rifle, then back to his face. Then it sat. Just sat. The motion was so unexpected, so normal, that Elias lowered the weapon half an inch before catching himself. "What in God's name are you?" he said aloud. The beast shifted again. No sound, no obvious aggression. Its posture resembled a guard dog more than a monster. Watching. Waiting. Something about the eyes troubled him. They weren't dead things. They weren't feral. They were alert. Focused. Almost cautious. Elias backed out of the chamber slowly and sealed the pod room behind him. His heart wasn't racing. That bothered him most of all. Hours passed. He returned to the bay twice, both times unarmed. No change. The creature did not sleep. Or if it did so with its eyes open. He considered alerting high command. He composed half a message. Deleted it. Then he made a decision that, by all accounts, should have gotten him court-martialed. He returned again, this time with a chair. He sat outside the containment field and watched. And the beast watched back. The first words didn't come until the third visit. I've been through 2 wars. Watched a moon fall. Saw a child crushed by falling bulkhead. Still haunts me. Silence. Then a small motion, one clawed finger tapping the ground. Rhythmic. Almost like a heartbeat. Elias chuckled, a dry rasp. You understand me, don't you? More tapping. The creature's body relaxed slightly. It leaned forward, not menacingly but like a cat drawn toward a familiar sound. He kept talking. About the war. About losing people. About guilt. About what it meant to survive when better men didn't. He didn't know why he spoke. Maybe because the thing listened. Maybe because it didn't talk back. On the 5th visit he brought it a data slate. Loaded with recordings. Old Earth music. Simple videos of wildlife, children's cartoons, city footage. He left the slate at the edge of the containment zone and backed off. The beast didn't touch it for an hour. Then it moved. Delicately, claws like surgical blades, it tapped the screen. A low flicker of sound played. A child laughing. Water running. It flinched at first, then settled. Watched everything. Next day the slate was empty. All files reviewed. Some more than once. Elias loaded it again. Added more. Documentaries. Newsreels. A holovid of Terran First Contact treaties. It consumed them all. He started to wonder if the creature even slept. And then the dreams began again. More vivid. No longer flame but memory. He stood in a circular room of silver walls, under a starless sky. Around him screams echoed. The kind that weren't made with mouths. The beast was there, smaller, surrounded by restraints. Alien figures poked it with rods, injected fluids, spoke in guttural clicks. Its body spasmed. Then it looked at him, not in anger. In desperation. He woke gasping. On impulse he returned to the pod chamber. The beast was curled in a low crouch again, but when Elias entered, it rose slightly. It didn't threaten. It merely waited. Elias stepped closer. 1 pace. Then another. He stopped when their distance closed to 10 feet. Who did this to you? He asked quietly. The beast didn't answer. But it raised its hand, slowly, deliberately, and touched its own chest. Then its head. Then it lowered the hand and let out a long, quiet breath. Elias stared. Not at the claws. Not at the armor. At the breath. It was the sigh of someone who knew pain. Not physical. Existential. He crossed the final distance. 2 feet. 1. He knelt. The beast did not move. Then very slowly it reached forward. Not with a claw. With the back of its hand. It brushed the side of his arm, just barely. As if checking he was real. Then it did something that almost undid him entirely. It leaned its massive head down and touched it to the floor near him. Submission. Trust. Or something deeper. Elias didn't move for several minutes. When he stood, he placed his hand on the beast's arm, just once. Warm. Solid. Alive. That night he reviewed the station logs. In one he found the access port in the pod's rear panel. Hidden beneath a false diagnostic seal. He cracked it. Inside was a memory core. Encrypted but not Elder code. This was older. Sharper. Made by a species no longer on any known star maps. He ran a translator overlay. What came through was fragmented. Raw. But enough. Audio and visual fragments. The beast as a cub, smaller, more agile, running through dense forests. Then captured. Chained. Injected. Conditioned. The memories were stitched together, not chronological. A patchwork of agony, training, escape. And one clear moment, defending a group of alien children from raiders. The footage from Crushed 3. Only, not as the council had shown. In this version the beast shields the children. Takes a plasma round to the back. Kills the raiders. Then collapses. The ending frame, those glowing amber eyes, wasn't rage. It was fear. Fear that help wouldn't come. Elias leaned back, sick to his stomach. He'd been lied to. The council hadn't dumped a weapon on him. They'd buried a truth. The beast hadn't been destroying outposts. It had been defending itself. Possibly others. And the council wanted it dead. He stared at the security footage of the pod bay. The creature was lying down, tail curled in, motionless. It looked tired. Not from sleep deprivation. From carrying too much. Elias closed the file. Shut down the console. And made his choice. He would protect it. Whatever it was. Whoever it had once been. Because something in its silence spoke louder than 1,000 words. It had been hurt. And it didn't want to be alone anymore. Not in the dark. Not in the stars. Not in the eyes of a human who saw more than a monster. He stood, walked to the bay, and this time when he opened the door he didn't bring a gun. He brought a chair. And 2 cups. One for him. One left untouched. But waiting. Just in case. By the time the kill team arrived, Elias would be ready. And so would the beast. Together. Because something was coming. And trust, once earned, does not fade. It sharpens. It readies. It becomes the kind of bond the galaxy never sees coming. The kind that changes everything. A transmission pierced the silence like a blade. Captain Elias Rourke, this is High Diplomatic Authority Thaurex of the Elder Council. You are ordered to transfer Omega Zeta Prime into our custody immediately. Non-compliance will result in planetary sanction and formal charges under the Galactic Sentient Safety Accord. The message looped twice before the comms officer, barely 20, sweating through his uniform, turned toward Elias. Sir? Elias didn't answer at first. He was watching the feed from Bay 3. The creature sat hunched near the corner of the enclosure, knees drawn up like a child in an unfamiliar room. A datapad flickered beside it, replaying a video of Terran oceans, waves lapping at white shores. I heard it, Elias said at last. Prepare to transmit a response. The officer hesitated. Captain, if we disobey the elders. We're not disobeying. We're requesting clarification. He met the young man's eyes. And scrambling all outgoing logs not initiated by me. Understood. He didn't wait for confirmation. He turned and left the bridge. Minutes later, Elias stood again at the edge of the containment field. The creature rose when he entered as it always did now, taller than any Terran but slower in its movements, more deliberate. Less beast, more presence. The kind of stillness that didn't demand authority but exuded it by existing. They want you dead, Elias said. The beast blinked once. Then it sat back down. I found the rest of your memory core. I decrypted what I could. He took a breath, let it out slowly. They made you. Engineered, enslaved. Then discarded. You didn't attack that moon base. You protected it. Protected them. The creature tilted its head, not in confusion but patience. Waiting. Not for understanding, acceptance. I can't turn you over to them. I won't. Elias stepped closer, no longer keeping a barrier between them. But that means we need to run. At this, the creature's posture shifted. Not in panic, preparation. Elias pulled a small chip from his jacket and knelt, slotting it into the base of the creature's enclosure. This will disable the alarm grid for 27 minutes. Just enough time to get you to a shuttle. From there we head to the surface. There's an old relay station buried in the ice canyons, no longer connected to any Galnet feed. We go dark. We wait. A long pause. Then without a word the beast reached out, slow, careful, and placed one clawed hand over Elias's. It wasn't gratitude. It was solidarity. The escape was quiet. Efficient. Every step timed, every door hacked, every camera looped. By the time the Elder's retrieval cruiser entered orbit, the pod was already empty, and the man and the monster were descending into the planet's atmosphere in a barely functional emergency drop pod retrofitted with stealth plating and a borrowed navcore. They hit the ice at terminal velocity, slowed only marginally by aged graph thrusts. The pod skidded half a kilometer across a glacier and came to rest against a jagged ridge of frozen basalt. Elias cursed under his breath, punched the manual release and staggered into the cold. The wind screamed across the plain, biting through his suit. But the creature was already moving, barely slowed by the weather. It turned once to ensure Elias was following. Then it began the long trek toward the canyon. The relay station was real, just as he'd said, a derelict structure from the first wave of Terran expansion, all rusted supports and cracked solar panels. But its substructure was intact, and more importantly, it was invisible to orbital scans. Inside, Elias collapsed against a wall, chest heaving. He didn't remember being this tired during the war. Maybe because this time he knew exactly what he stood to lose. The creature crouched in a far corner, eyes scanning every shadow. For the first time, Elias noticed something new in its posture: restlessness. He checked his datapad. The Council's kill team will reach orbit in 5 hours. The creature looked at him, then turned toward the main console and touched one claw to the shattered screen. A low hum filled the room. Then a projection bloomed, fragmented memories, streaming from the beast's biocore. Not images this time. Sounds. Voices. Screams in a language long dead. The staccato rhythm of drills. Chains. Then a child's voice. Untranslated but unmistakably joyful. Elias stepped closer. The projection looped again. This time slower. "You saved them," he murmured. "That's what they erased." The creature didn't answer. But the projection shifted again, this time showing Elias. His face. His voice. One of the recordings he'd left on the datapad. The beast had saved that memory too. Footsteps interrupted the silence. Elias spun, weapon raised, but the sound wasn't inside the station. It was outside. Above. He pulled up the scanner feed. A ship had landed, sleek, silent, bearing the silver crest of the Elder Enforcement Division. Thalrex wasn't wasting time. "Can you fight?" he asked, turning toward the creature. It didn't rise. It simply stood and looked at him, unblinking. "I don't want them hurt if it can be avoided," Elias added. "But if they're here to kill you?" The unspoken words hung heavy. The creature stepped forward and did something Elias didn't expect. It moved behind him. Then gently curled its long, armored arms around his shoulders. Protective. Silent. And then, with incredible care, it pulled him close, resting its massive head just above his. It was a gesture no training manual had ever prepared him for. Elias reached up and touched its forearm. Then the wall exploded. The first blast tore through the relay's upper struts, showering the floor with debris. Elias hit the ground hard, shoulder cracking against concrete. Through the smoke, figures emerged. 3 soldiers in reflective armor, plasma rifles drawn, eyes unreadable behind polarized visors. "Captain Rourke," one called. "Step away from the creature." Elias wiped blood from his temple and stood slowly. "You're making a mistake." The lead soldier raised his weapon. "Step away." Behind him, the beast didn't move. It waited. Elias took one step back. Not away. Toward it. "You fire on him," Elias said, voice cold and unwavering. "You're going to have to go through me." The silence that followed was brutal. Then the second soldier lowered his rifle half an inch. "Sir, the Council said this thing was a threat." "I've seen what it is. And what it isn't." Elias's jaw clenched. "And I know what the Council is afraid of." The third soldier hesitated. "We're not here to shoot humans, Captain." "Then don't shoot at all." The first soldier's finger twitched on the trigger. Behind him, the beast growled, low, deep, resonant. Not a threat. A warning. The soldier fired. The bolt never landed. The beast surged forward with speed that broke sound. In a blur of shadow and claws, it intercepted the bolt midair, absorbing it into its shoulder plating, and landed between Elias and the squad. It didn't attack. It shielded. The soldiers froze. Elias stepped out from behind the creature, raised both hands. "You've just seen it protect me from you. The same way it protected those children on Crest 3. The same way it's tried again and again to avoid bloodshed." The soldiers exchanged glances. The lead lowered his weapon. "We were told it slaughtered civilians." "The footage was altered. I've got the real records. Biocore data, direct from the source." The second soldier spoke more quietly. "Then why does the Council want it erased?" "Because it remembers. Because it survived." The wind howled again outside, but inside no one moved. The lead soldier turned to his team. "We take this story public, they'll bury us." "Or we change the story," Elias replied. "One truth at a time." The squad didn't reply, but they didn't fire again. Elias turned back to the creature, who now stood watching the humans, not as prey, not even as threat, but as something unfamiliar. Something uncertain. "I think they're starting to see you," Elias said. The creature didn't respond, but its eyes softened. Then gently it sat. Behind Elias, the soldiers began securing the relay station, not as a kill zone, but as a shelter. For the moment, the tide hadn't turned, but it had started to shift. And somewhere in the galaxy, people would soon begin to ask questions. About the monster the elders feared. And the man who stood beside it. Even in silence, trust had found its voice. And it was only growing louder. They didn't arrive in chains. Elias had insisted on that. And despite the protests of several counselors and more than one military official, the demand had been honored. The grand hall of the Galactic Elder Assembly was unlike any place Elias had ever stood. Vaulted arches of weightless crystal arched hundreds of meters overhead, thrumming with resonant energy that gave voice to every speaker without the need for technology. Delegates from 100 species sat in a rising semicircle, flanked by media drones and honor guards in ceremonial armor. This was not a court. This was theater. And at the center of it all stood the creature. No longer hunched in shadows, no longer confined by misinterpretation. It stood tall beneath the lights, eyes steady, posture calm. Armor plates along its limbs had dulled slightly, no longer bristling with tension. It wore no restraints, only the weight of countless assumptions laid across its shoulders. It bore them without flinching. Elias stood beside it. His uniform was clean but unadorned, stripped of medals and rank. Not as a punishment, he had chosen to wear it that way. He wasn't here as a soldier. He was here as a witness. The silence that preceded the trial wasn't an accident. It was a ritual imposed by the Ilari. Let them feel the pressure of the moment they believed. Let their own doubts echo louder than our accusations. Counselor Thalrex finally broke the stillness. Captain Elias Rourke, you are charged with dereliction of duty, obstruction of council orders, dissemination of restricted intelligence, and unauthorized shielding of a Class Omega Zeta threat. Do you acknowledge these actions? I do, Elias replied, his voice crisp, unwavering. And I would do them again. A soft murmur spread across the gallery. You have admitted to open defiance of elder authority. Why? Because I saw what you didn't, or wouldn't. He turned, gesturing to the creature beside him. This being was manufactured by a long-extinct race, created to be a weapon, controlled, abused, but it never asked for any of that. And when it broke free, it didn't retaliate, it ran. It hid. And when it was cornered, it protected the innocent. Thalrex's expression, partially obscured behind his ornate ceremonial veil, betrayed nothing. You accuse this council of deception. Do you have evidence? Elias stepped forward and placed a small device on the central pedestal. A pulse of light expanded outward, revealing layers of data, visual logs, genetic traces, decrypted memory feeds, all drawn from the beast's biocore. The footage played in silence. Children behind the barricade, the beast shielding them from crossfire, taking plasma shots meant for others, refusing to strike unless provoked. When the sequence ended, the silence returned, but it had changed. It wasn't ritual anymore. It was reaction. A Varn counselor vibrated sharply, projecting an acoustic translation. If this data is accurate, the incident on Crest 3 was a rescue, not an attack. It was, Elias confirmed. The original footage was trimmed and reversed to paint it otherwise. The creature wasn't the aggressor. The real aggressors are dead, and someone in this chamber wanted to bury the truth with them. Another murmur swept through the room, sharper now. Thalrex raised a hand. We admit the footage may have been incomplete. But the danger remains. Omega Zeta is a bioweapon. Its potential for destruction is unmatched. Even now, it could be manipulated, turned against our species. Anything can be manipulated, Elias shot back. Fear most of all. You created a villain out of what you didn't understand. Then you passed that fear on to everyone else. The creature moved for the first time since the trial began. Slowly, deliberately, it lowered itself into a crouch, head bowed, hands resting on its knees. Not defeated. Present. Listening. A gesture of openness. Elias stepped aside, giving the council a clear line of sight. He understands us. Not our languages, not yet, but our emotions. He's learned empathy through observation, through interaction, and through choice. When I stood unarmed before him, he didn't strike. When soldiers attacked us, he didn't retaliate. He protected. He shielded. That is not programming. That is character. From the upper gallery, a soft cry broke the air. A child's voice. A young alien girl, tentacled, no older than 5 standard cycles, had slipped past her guardian and now stood at the front of the spectator railing, eyes wide as she stared at the beast. Her voice, high and uncertain, echoed, "Are you still sad?" The room froze. The creature looked up, blinking slowly. And then, with impossible gentleness, it lowered itself further, chest to the ground, arms folded beneath it, and extended one hand toward the girl. Not close enough to touch. Just far enough to show she could come closer if she wished. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The girl stepped forward. Before anyone could stop her, she reached over the barrier, leaned down, and touched one of the creature's claws. It didn't move. She smiled. The silence shattered into 1,000 emotions. Panic, awe, anger, hope. Thaurex rose so quickly his ceremonial veil snapped behind him. This is a violation of protocol. Remove the child. No, the Varn delegate's voice boomed out again, sharp and unwavering. Leave her. A dozen others echoed it. The girl withdrew her hand slowly, then whispered to the creature, "You're not scary. You're just lonely." Then she turned and walked calmly back to her guardian, who scooped her up with tearful relief. Elias turned to Thaurex, voice quiet but edged with steel. "Do you still want to tell this room that thing is incapable of compassion?" Thaurex said nothing. A new voice entered, this one older, slower but clear. "The supreme arbiter of the assembly. We have heard the evidence. We have seen the conduct. We shall vote now on the fate of Omega Zeta Prime. Options are as follows: termination, containment, or sanctuary under Terran protection." The room glowed with pulses as each delegate cast their decision. Seconds passed. Then the results displayed above them, color-coded and final. Termination, 12 votes. Containment, 29 votes. Sanctuary, 59 votes. The arbiter raised one hand. Sanctuary granted. Omega Zeta Prime shall be transferred to Terran oversight immediately. All charges against Captain Rourke are rescinded. This session is concluded. The crowd erupted, not in applause but in voices, questions, reactions, debates already forming. The media drones swarmed like insects, catching every angle. But Elias wasn't listening. He was looking at the creature. And the creature was looking at him. Outside the chamber, after the storm had passed, they walked in silence through the crystalline corridors. Elias glanced sideways. "You understand what just happened?" The creature didn't speak, but its eyes crinkled ever so slightly. He smiled. "That's what we call justice." They stopped before a viewport. Earth glimmered far in the distance, a pale orb hanging against velvet black. "I filed your name with the official registry," Elias said after a moment. "Korzoth. It was encoded in your memory core, deep beneath the fragments. I think it belonged to your original self. Before they changed you." The creature, Korzoth, watched the stars. Then it did something it had never done before. It laughed. A deep, rumbling sound, not quite human, not quite alien, but full of warmth and weight. Elias didn't laugh back. He just nodded. "Yeah, that's the sound." Korzoth turned and knelt, motioning with one arm. Elias stepped forward. This time there was no hesitation. He leaned against the creature's shoulder, and Kor curled a protective arm around him. Not as a beast, not as a weapon, but as a friend. And far above them, across thousands of ships and billions of feeds, the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the universe's deadliest predator cuddled a human in the golden light of a future rewritten. And for the first time in recorded history, fear gave way to something stronger. Understanding.